Hey there, good afternoon to you. 506 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news and supporting the Fisher House. It's the Fisher House Radiothon now for over 20 years. WMAL's great audience has been supporting the Fisher House. Over $8.3 million raised during that time frame. We've built a lot of Fisher Houses, taking care of a lot of military families, and we're doing it again this year. Go ahead, dial that number, 888-294-8560. Or just go online to WMAL.com/FisherHouse. I assure you, if you have a good internet connection, you can donate in probably under 15 seconds. It's that quick. Get it over and done with. Out of your way. I took care of the Fisher House. And if you want, do it as a Christmas gift. Do it in somebody's name and get them that for Christmas. It's hard to beat that as a gift, honestly. Supporting the Fisher House Day. A lot of great guests coming up on that subject. So while WMAL's audience is focused on helping Americans and doing good for the people, what's the White House focused on? What is the Biden White House focused on today? Well, Karinge stepped out to the White House press briefing, and she has a brand new lectern to stand behind. She must have crashed the old one because they put out, they're really excited today. Imagine, there's so many things, the whole country is like the border's collapsing, the economy's in a shambles, the international situation is awful, energy prices are crazy, everything is chaos. So the White House press office decides now is the perfect time to have a custom-built lectern installed in the White House press briefing room. I don't know, is the symbolism of this White House breaking through to you at all? It's so stinking decadent. They are the capital city from the Hunger Games. Everybody else is struggling for scraps, and they're out talking about how great their lecterns are. I'm not even sure. Does Karinge know what a lectern is? Did she say lectern? Did she say podium? Here she is today. I swear to you, they start the press briefing by introducing the furniture.
So today, I am honored to speak to you from our brand new press toast lectern. Yay.
She got the terminology right.
Yay. And I'm proud to name the lectern in honor of Alice Dunnigan and Ethel Payne, the first two black women in White House press corps.
Oh my gosh. It honestly, just barf. The whole thing. It's they don't care about you.
In addition to the annual White House Correspondents Association Award in their name, we are excited to help remember their service to the American public in this way. The Dunnigan-Payne lectern and its accompanying seal were designed over the last year, and they replaced the previous lectern, which had been used in our briefing room since 2007. The previous lectern will be preserved. I'm sure many of you were wondering what was going to happen to the previous lectern, so it's going to be preserved. Now, this lectern, a blend of modernity and tradition, is meant to embody the essence.
How many times did she practice the word modernity before she said it today?
Modernity and tradition is meant to embody the essence of our country's stature, built using a harmonious combination of metal and black walnut, as you can see. The metal.
Have you ever had a custom piece of furniture made? You ever try and get a quote on something like that? Do you know what this costs? What does it cost to get some custom black walnut combination of metal and black walnut lectern? What is that? Is that a $20,000 lectern? How much did you pay for that? How much taxpayer money did you just burn through?
A blend of modernity and tradition is meant to embody the essence of our country's stature, built using a harmonious combination of metal and black walnut.
Yeah, I know. When I watch the White House press briefing, the one thing I'm always thinking of, you know what this press briefing needs? A brand new lectern made of black walnut.
As you can see, the metal.
And why did the walnut have to be black?
Speaks to the resilience and strength of our nation, while the black walnut represents the rich history and the deep-rooted foundations upon which this country stands. The blue paint signifies vigilance, perseverance, and justice.
Oh my gosh.
Every member of this team, consisting of Army, Navy, and the civilians, brought unique expertise and skills to the project, and we are deeply grateful for their work and this new addition to our shared space.
So that's the single most important thing at the press briefing today. When I didn't hear the audio first. Corey told me about it. He said they did like a full minute and a half warm up on the lectern. I said they did. So did obviously, since she's a public servant, did she describe what the expense was? How much it cost them? Us? And Corey told me no. His report back was no. They didn't mention the cost to this. But here's what she has to say about your costs.
Today, annual inflation fell to its lowest level in more than 2.5 years, and monthly inflation was 0.
Yeah, just lie after lie. The prices are out of control. And that's Karinge. So what they did today, as they so often do, because the press wanted to ask a bunch of questions about foreign affairs, and Karinge doesn't know anything about that at all. She doesn't. She can't answer questions on international topics. She doesn't even know how to spell the names of the countries. So they bring in a ringer. They bring in John Kirby to do the adult press briefing. And so John Kirby, after she's done introducing the lectern, they're like, okay, now for real questions. They bring out John Kirby. And so John Kirby does the briefing for a while, and he's talking about Israel and ceasefires and Gaza and on and on. And then at the end of his remarks, our friend Simon Atiba attempts to ask a question, as he so often does. He's being very polite, but he wants to ask a question about Africa. And seeing as he is Africa's most famous reporter, stationed here in the United States, going to the White House press briefings, you would think that maybe the White House would call on him, take the question, give him a quick answer, and move on. But yet again, they refuse to. And in fact, not only do they refuse to answer his question, they treat him like a child, and then Karinge ends the press briefing. She folds up the whole binder that she carries around with her that has all of her answers written in it, and she storms out of the room. Listen to this.
Actually, follow up on Angola.
One question.
It is so surprising that you don't take, if you are receiving an African leader, you can't take a question from an African journalist.
We can end this. Sorry, I have one question. Basically, John Senator Mark Rubio.
It's not about ending the briefing. I want to ask an African question because I am receiving an African
question. All right, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my God.
She just folds up the book.
All right, we can end this briefing if it's not going to be respectful.
Oh, I see. No, I'm sorry. Not yet. Not quite yet. She's about to.
Chris.
That's what I'm saying. You are receiving an African leader and you don't take questions.
Thanks, everybody.
I have a question about gas prices.
There she
Thanks,
goes.
everybody.
Can we do one about the falling gas prices?
Folds up the book, flees the room. Flees the room. Now, just let's think this through strategically for a second. If you were tired of his interruptions, Simon's interruptions, Simon's talking out of turn, do you know how easy this would be to resolve? All they have to do is call on him once every 6 months. Just call on Simon. Yeah, go ahead, Simon. I want to know about Africa. Okay, yeah, our relationships with Africa are excellent. We're working with the African countries to advance our shared interests, on and on. Thank you, Simon. Move on, right? That would be the easiest thing in the world. They could resolve this in a heartbeat. And by the way, the White House Correspondents Association should be standing up for the reporters who are not getting questions in that room to ensure that they do get questions. But of course they don't. They don't do that. They're not advancing the interests of journalists. They're just they're doing whatever the White House wants them to do. Which is crazy. You know, I've worked with a lot of White House correspondents through the years, written a lot of questions for the White House. And the one thing I always drive home is do not make your question the same as everybody else's. You shouldn't sound like the television networks. What is the point of having a White House press briefing with, I don't know how many seats they have in there, 24 seats or whatever the numbers are? What's the point of having all those people in there if everyone's going to ask the same question? That doesn't even make any sense. So of course there should be a diversity to questions. Actual diversity. And the Correspondents Association, their obligation was supposed to be to fight on behalf of the press, to stand up for the First Amendment, and then make sure that there's enough access given around the room so that everybody gets a chance to ask these questions of the most powerful office on the planet. And no, nobody stands up for Simon. So Simon's just trying to stand up for himself. And she could deal with this in a second. All she has to do is call on him, service that issue. It's done. Move on. But no, her ego gets in the way. Her ego is just right in, she just can't get over it. And she decides she'd rather be imperious. She'd rather put on a big show. I'm shutting my book. And she storms out of the room, doesn't answer questions. Not that her answers were going to be all that interesting in the first place, but Man, what a show, huh? But at least we got a new lectern. At least you got to spend a ton of money on a black walnut lectern. Thank goodness. So while the White House isn't helping people, WMAL's audience is. This is the Fisher House Radiothon. We're supporting the Fisher House, as we do each year, right here on the program. You can call 888-294-8560 to do that today. 888-294-8560. Or you can go online to WMAL.com/FisherHouse to support the Fisher House, support our troops and their families. It's such a worthwhile cause. It really is. In fact, I want to bring in a guest now who can help tell you a little bit more about the Fisher House. It's Annah Brice, who's joining us on the phone. She's the spouse of an active duty service member and did stay in a Fisher House. Annah, good to have you with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
Annah, tell us, what brought you into contact with the Fisher House?
Yeah, so we originally heard about the Fisher House after my daughter got sick, and we were moving from Germany to Washington, and they were able to help us out.
And when you say your daughter got sick, can you tell us a little bit more about that? And in what ways did the Fisher House help?
Yeah, absolutely. So my daughter was diagnosed with something called severe aplastic anemia, which is a rare disease that affects about 1 in a million people. And so there wasn't really sure on how to treat her for that. There was a lot of confusion with everything. But and as well as us finding a place to stay, because it was our first time back into the country in a long time. And then our patient liaisons told us about the Fisher House. So we got in contact with that, which is the manager at the Fisher House, and she's amazing. And she immediately, before even getting approved, she moved us in, and she helped us with toiletries and with the bank next door, ACU, and Fisher House also helped us with getting tickets to go to the zoo, tickets to go to the aquarium. They got my daughter tons of toys, a wagon, since my daughter, since she has anemia, she wasn't able to walk around as often without getting tired, so they got her a wagon. And then they went grocery shopping for us and everything. They really have been such a blessing from the beginning.
Goodness. How old was your daughter at the time?
So whenever she was first diagnosed, she was 5 years old. She is 6 years old now.
Wow. Okay. And how long did you stay at the Fisher House?
We were for a long time. So we got here in March, and we didn't leave until about the end of August.
Was that this year?
Yes, of this year.
Wow. So from March until August of this year, you're staying in the Fisher House, and they're seeing to your daughter's needs and seeing to your needs and bringing her toys and wagons. I mean, that must have taken a tremendous weight off of your shoulders, just the logistics of that.
It really did. It really did, because it took the hassle of having your home off the table. It took the grocery shopping off the table. It took the cleaning off the table. It took the folding of laundry and everything like that, because everything's provided to you, and there's tons of volunteers that help out, and the only thing that you are responsible for is just worrying about your child, and it makes everything so much easier.
If I can ask, how's your daughter doing now?
She's actually doing great. It's funny that you asked. Yesterday she had a surgery to remove her port, so she no longer needs it, which is amazing. But she is still going to be in treatment for the next year and a half. But in terms of her blood work, she's almost completely back to normal.
Oh my gosh.
And they were able to remove her access port.
Oh my gosh, that's such a blessing.
Yes, it is.
It has to be brutal to watch a daughter 5, 6 years old go through all of this, because especially with little kids, it's like you don't even know how to convey to them what exactly is going on, what the stakes are, even.
That is
but
true.
Children, they endure, they figure out a way to get through, and boy, to have love around her, I'm sure that played a huge role.
They do. I'm telling you, it was such a blessing having Fisher House around, because at Fisher House, there's multiple different families staying there at a time, and we fell in love with each individual family, and they had children around the same age as my daughter as well, and they were able to play, so she was able to be around kids her age that had the same immune system as her, so we weren't worried about any of the kids getting sick. It really was amazing, But it is very difficult to do. But once again, with having everyone around you sick as well and in the same situation as you, it takes all of the awkwardness away of having to explain certain situations and limitations because everyone's going through the same exact thing.
Well, Annah Brice, we're so appreciative of your time today. Please, tonight, give your daughter a hug and tell her that she's helping out the other kids who are at the Fisher House big time.
Thank you so much. You're amazing. Thank you.
Anna, thank you very much. You guys are amazing. It's just, and the Fisher House just doing amazing things for people like Anna. And when I say the Fisher House, that means you. That's honestly, this is, I keep saying it and I'll keep emphasizing, this is a report card on what WMAL's audience has done. Were it not for WMAL's listeners, the Fisher House would not be able to do all of this. They wouldn't. That's how much WMAL's audience has contributed through the years. The number 888-294-8560, 888-294-8560, and the website WMAL.com/Fisher House. Is this real? That's real? All right. I'm just kidding. He never hands me fake stuff. This is Corey hands off this piece of paper. $5,000. $5,000 just contributed to the Fisher House by Jim in Vienna. Jim, you are an American patriot, helping out American patriots. God bless you for that. $5,000 just in. And that brings our total this hour here on WMAL to $220,412 contributed just so far today by WMAL's great audience to the Fisher House, to our troops and their families. God bless you. I can't say that enough. Coming up on the program, more on the Fisher House Radiothon as we bring you through the final half hour of the Vince Colonnese Show and into the Mark Levin program. And I've got some updates for you on what your government is up to. Don't miss them. Well, good afternoon to you. 535 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. You can join us today at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. And it is the Fisher House Radiothon ongoing here on WMAL. Such a great tradition here. We've got a phone number for you. It's 888-294-8560. 888-294-8560 is the number to call and talk to one of the very sweet people at the Fisher House who will happily say hello to you. And thank you for your contribution to help the troops out. Or you can donate online at WMAL.com/Fisher House. I wasn't kidding. It really does take seconds to make a quick contribution, especially if you have Apple Pay or whatever the Google equivalent setup is. You just, boom, right through. And make a quick contribution. Would be really nice to do. And coming up, we'll talk more with some of the great representatives from the Fisher House who will tell you all about their wonderful work. Let me tell you a little bit about what's going on with your government, though. You know, the Biden administration has made no secret of the fact that they are meddling in our electoral process in a big way. Remember at the beginning of the administration, they sent out an order to all of the various agencies that they needed to have this like a get out the vote effort. We're going to protect the vote. Do you remember all this? It was so they send out this order that all these agencies have to work on voter integrity and on and on. And now we've got Republicans in Congress are demanding answers and not getting any on the ways in which the federal government is trying to gin up votes using federal tax dollars. How about give us more information on that? These Republican lawmakers are asking for. And, of course, we deserve that. They shouldn't be in the business of trying to get people out to vote at all. That is not the federal government's job. The voters pick the government. The government doesn't pick the voters. But in the world of Joe Biden and company, they want to pick the voters because they see that as their source of everlasting power. Additionally, we were talking with Brent Bizzell earlier about the ways in which the government is working hand in glove with the big tech companies to rig the information economy, to try and prevent you from knowing certain things or to ensure you think about these things in a certain way. And an example of that is what DHS has done through its Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, which we've heard a lot about over the past few years. The agency who claims that the 2020 election was the most secure in American history. How could you even say something like that? CISA can. You have to trust them. They're with the government. Well, a couple years back, they released a video in June of 2021 instructing their viewers, instructing American citizens that they needed to actively, quote, counter disinformation. And part of countering disinformation included if you have family members who are saying things about the COVID-19 pandemic that you consider to be naughty, you should report them. You should report them to the big tech companies to make sure that they get censored. So DHS, CISA, they put out a video to this effect. And here's what the video sounded like. Take a listen. You may remember some of this.
Welcome to Cybersecurity 101. Class is in session. Today's lesson, countering disinformation on social media. Since 2020, there has been a lot of false and inaccurate information about COVID-19. In many cases, the authors of this misinformation are simply misinformed. But some misinformation is deliberately created to mislead, harm, or manipulate. We call this disinformation.
How dystopian is this? You know what I mean? This is like a broadcast you'd see in China.
In this case, by eroding trust in public health, disinformation could lower vaccine acceptance or adherence to safety protocols.
Oh no! What if fewer people get the vaccine?
By dividing the community, disinformation can cause a rise in infections and deaths. Consider this post from Susan's feed. It's from her uncle Steve, who claims everybody knows COVID is no worse than the flu.
Be on guard. Your own family members could be terrorists with information.
Statements like these often commit the fallacy of mob appeal by appealing to the emotions of a crowd for an idea to be accepted or rejected. Comparing a pandemic virus to a seasonal virus also commits the fallacy of weak analogy because the two viruses have telling differences. Steve fails to share those differences, committing the fallacy of suppressed evidence.
Okay, anyway, this keeps on going on and on and on. And the video eventually warns viewers that if they have an Uncle Steve who's telling people not to get the jab, that he needs to be reported to the big tech companies. They even show on screen how to click report to make sure the big tech companies know that Uncle Steve isn't saying what the government wants him to say, so that he can be censored and so that his content doesn't appear in front of other people for fear that Uncle Steve may influence them. You realize how crazy all this is? So what has happened, the update on this story is that DHS has memory hold this video. This video has just been quietly deleted from the federal government's YouTube page for DHS. It's just gone. If you go there, the video is just gone. It's been deleted now. No announcement. No, we're cleaning up the archives. No, I don't even know why you would need to do this. They've just deleted the video. CISA deleted the video somewhere between April 9th and May 9th, according to Internet Archives, the Daily Caller with the report here. And it was the Foundation for Freedom Online that originally detected all of this. And so in order to find this, thankfully, the Foundation for Freedom Online is like one of the only places that actually kept a copy of this video so that we have evidence that it ever existed in the first place. So they're trying to erase the evidence of their own misdeeds in the past. They want to make it go away. And on that issue, on the pandemic, on the government force, on all of the lies that were told, all of the actual disinformation, misinformation that came out of the corporate news media and out of the government, we've got an update on that story today as well. Attorney General Ken Paxton in Texas has announced that he is suing Pfizer. He is suing Pfizer for misrepresenting COVID-19 vaccine efficacy. That is, how effective the jabs were at actually preventing the spread of the disease, and conspiring to censor public disclosure. From the statement today, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has sued Pfizer Incorporated for unlawfully misrepresenting the effectiveness of the company's COVID-19 vaccine and attempting to censor public discussion of the product. Pfizer engaged in false, deceptive, and misleading acts and practices by making unsupported claims regarding the company's COVID-19 vaccine in violation of the Texas Deceptive Trade Practices Act. The pharmaceutical company's widespread representation that its vaccine possessed 95% efficacy against infection was what? Highly misleading. That metric represented a calculation of the so-called relative risk reduction for vaccinated individuals in Pfizer's initial 2-month clinical trial results. FDA publications indicate that relative risk reduction is a misleading statistic that unduly influences consumer choice. Pfizer was also put on notice at the time that vaccine protection could not accurately be predicted beyond 2 months. Nevertheless, Pfizer fostered a misleading impression that vaccine protection was durable and withheld from the public information that undermined its claims about the duration of protection. And despite the fact that its clinical trial failed to measure whether the vaccine protects against transmission, Pfizer embarked on a campaign to intimidate the public into getting the vaccine as a necessary measure to protect their loved ones. He goes on and on here, but the point is very well taken. Very well taken. And Ken Paxton standing up in a way that other AGs across the country should stand up on behalf of their people. Don't allow major corporations to mislead you. Don't allow them to do it in concert with the government. Don't allow them to rob you of your rights. These are simple things. And the prosecutors that we all hire in these state governments should, and the federal government for that matter, should be standing up for you. So Ken Paxton standing up for Texans here. And that'll be an interesting case to follow. Very interesting case to follow. But yeah, we do have a lot of censorship going on. And the big tech companies, they were doing it at the behest of Pfizer. So there was a lot of pressure on them from places like Pfizer and the federal government, shut down the disinformation. Anybody questioning any of this, shut them down. And we saw a lot of that happen. So just good to get some updates on those stories. And of course, the federal government isn't it amazing? The federal government has time to go back through its archives and delete videos that make them look bad. That's what they're focused on. Buying lecterns and deleting evidence that they were being tyrannical. That's what they're up to. Meanwhile, the WMAL audience is up to something good today. I'm awaiting. We'll have an update. We'll have an updated total for you coming very soon here. But this is the Fisher House Radiothon. We're supporting the Fisher House, a great organization. WMAL has been supporting the Fisher House and its efforts to support our troops for now over 2 decades. WMAL listeners have raised over $8.3 million to support the Fisher House. And when I talk about the people who get helped here, it's members of the military, definitely, active duty military members. It's veterans of all sorts of military service. That includes the Vietnam War. We've talked a lot about Vietnam veterans in the past, and I want to reemphasize today. Look at the awful return they had to the United States of America. You want to welcome back a veteran from Vietnam, a proper welcome. Take care of them here. These VA hospitals are seeing a lot of these Vietnam veterans, and many of them and their families, they need these Fisher Houses nearby to support them, and the Fisher House is doing that. So you can support and take care of these Vietnam veterans and finally give them the welcome home that they deserve by supporting the Fisher House. And you can do that by dialing 888-294-8560, 888-294-8560, or go online to WMAL.com/Fisher House. Now let's talk to a Navy veteran. His name is Jeff Sampson. Jeff received a double lung transplant and learned a whole lot about the Fisher House, too, in the process. Jeff, good to have you with us, sir. Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Tell us your story, Jeff.
Well, about 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I had a double lung transplant, and my wife needed a place to stay. And when I got out of the hospital, I needed a place to stay, and I was told about the Fisher House. My wife, just before my surgery, went to try to find a Fisher House, and she got lost, had the worst storm of the winter, and she got lost, couldn't get a hold of anybody. Finally got a hold of the manager at Fisher House St. Louis, and this lady went out in the middle of this storm, this snowstorm, and found my wife and brought her back to the Fisher House. And when I got out of the hospital, I stayed there. These people were like family. I go up once a year now, and it's like going home, a home away from home. Can't thank them enough. They saved us tons of money, and all the volunteers that helped the Fisher House.
I'm just imagining your wife's situation. I mean, you hate to be in a situation like that. You hate to hear that, a loved one's in a situation like that. So she was stranded somewhere in the snow. She had no idea where she even was?
she didn't have a clue. She's just a country girl, got up in a big city, took a wrong turn, ended up in the edge of Illinois, and finally got a hold of this by some stroke of miracle that she got a hold of Venetia Brown, the manager at St. Louis Fisher House, and tried to explain where she was and, had no clue. But
oh my gosh.
Venetia said, I think I know where you're at. Don't move. I'll be right there. And
Oh
she
my
went
gosh.
out and found her, and my wife followed her back to the Fisher House.
I mean, imagine just being in that situation. It must be like a guardian angel approaching the car. It's like, I'm on my way. I mean, what a nice. But this is it's a sign. What you're saying is it's a sign of kind of how all of these Fisher House volunteers and employees are. They really. I mean, my experience has been that they're all like this. They will bend over
Exactly.
backwards.
All
for you.
of them. It's like family, Well, Venetia Brown is my wife's guardian angel.
That's amazing. It's just amazing.
I can't say enough good things about her. The Fisher House, the staff, they're all like family.
Yeah. So that must have been. I mean, and so other than saving people from like life-threatening snowstorms, the Fisher House itself, it must have come as a great relief to you to have that resource and to not have to worry about the headache of bills or lodging or any of it.
The place is spectacular. It's probably, you cannot find a better hotel, motel, whatever to stay at. This place is just unbelievable. You stay for free. The food is free. The people are like family. We met people up there, like I said, almost 5 years ago, and we still stay in touch with a lot of them that we met there. It saved me and my wife approximately $5,000, money that we just flat didn't have.
And how long did you stay at the Fisher House, Jeff?
Well, actually, it was a little over 2.5 months.
Wow.
I was doing extremely well. Got out of the hospital in like 10 days, and we stayed there. I went through pulmonary rehab. It was just unbelievable. I was like their poster child. I did so well, and I'm still doing extremely well.
I was about to ask. So your health is doing okay these days?
Well, my lung function last time officially I had it taken was in October, 114%.
All right, now you're just showing off, Jeff. Honestly, like
That's right.
Try and reel it in a little bit.
I gotta brag a little bit. It was great.
That's
and I got a lot of it. A lot of it is mental.
Yeah, I bet.
I got this.
I bet.
You gotta have a good attitude, just like being in the military. I got this.
Well, Jeff Sampson, you do have this, and today you're serving your country yet again by telling people about how wonderful the Fisher House is, and this goes a long way. So, Jeff, thank you very much. Great to hear about your health. Great to hear about your experience with the Fisher House. Really appreciate your call today, sir.
So it was my pleasure. I just can't say enough about the Fisher House.
We hear it from everybody we talk to. Anybody who's come into contact, they sound a lot like Jeff does. Jeff, thank you very much, sir. You can.
Thank you.
God bless. You can help out people like Jeff at 888-294-8560. That's 888-294-8560. Let's get a last second big push here on WMAL. I'd like to, conquer the other shows here on the. Let's be honest. Let's just destroy them. Can we do that? Am I allowed to say that as a part of an effort to raise funds for the Fisher House? I'd like to destroy the other shows. Listen, some friendly competition. 888-294-8560, or you can go online, WMAL.com/Fisher House. Or go online to WMAL.com/Fisher House. I want to thank Robert in Manassas, who just made a $1,000 contribution to the Fisher House, which brings today's total to $226,777. Let me just put that differently. Over the course of these last 3 hours, we've raised nearly $40,000, and it continues. Coming up, just throughout this Mark Levin program, coming up in a moment here, you can keep calling the number 888-294-8560. 8560, or go online, WMAL.com/Fisher House. Help out the Fisher House. And by the way, if you're still working on whether or not you're going to make that $1 million contribution, make it at any time you'd like over the next 24 hours. Just make sure you do. You tell them that you did it because you heard it on the Vince Coglianese show, and that Chris Plant needs to come mow your lawn. That'll be the plan. Maybe I'll help out too. I'll weed whack. It's 5:58. The great one up next.